We asked you about how you see the law. We told you a story of an architect and his workers to assess what you naturally see as the main point. We told you about a servant leader's effect on his followers and an orphan who could not trust her adoption by the rich man. We asked you questions that capture your current core assumptions about the nature of man and spiritual life. We explored what knowledge, truth, and faith is and how they affect your decision making. And from your responses to these stories and questions, you appear to recognize there is more to life than what you find in the physical world, that there is supernatural power and there are resources in the invisible world. Now, while science is always an important source of knowledge, your spiritual orientation implies you recognize that gnosis knowledge and faith play a major role in determining what is true. It seems that you agree with many of the core assumptions we classify as the spiritual before worldview. Many people use the phrase, "I'm only human," when they mess up or have a sense of their own mistakes. You may have used this phrase too, haven't we all? But this is a contradiction in your before worldview. For you, the word only doesn't fit, because you see your identity contains much more than your humanity. You have a spirit too. Consistent with your spiritual identity, you have insights into the bestowed or the bestowal worldview. As you trust something beyond yourself, you recognize that you receive favor you do not earn. And because of this view, you likely feel thankful. You probably wondered why the orphan we discussed in session 2 couldn't enjoy her adoption. Well, your spiritual identity is an opportunity for you to reflect more on the satisfaction that comes from knowing that everything does not depend on what you do. And there are benefits that come to you regardless of what you do, like a beautiful sunshiny day. And with grace dominant in your view of life, let's continue to see how your before worldview profile influences how you think, feel, and act. While reward and punishment systems demand your attention in many areas of life, as a Christian, they are not what satisfy you. You believe that living a satisfied life is a result of grace, freely given to you and received by faith alone in Jesus' work on the cross. And while God cares about the circumstances in your life, living abundantly and virtuously are not dependent on the actions of others or acts of nature such as illness and tragedy or working for God's favor. Like what Jesus advocates in the Sermon on the Mount, the bestowal worldview links your emotions to what you believe to be true, not what happens around you in the temporal and visible world. You can likely see the joy of the orphan as she is adopted by the rich man on the hill, receiving all she needs without earning any of what she gets. Virtue is viewed as faithfulness to the one that has been faithful to you, not meeting rules and regulations that justify you before God and others. You are comfortable in a type 3 community that is grace-based. You'll be able to see worldviews of various societal institutions differently because you can view those from a bestowal worldview in contrast to an exchange worldview. And as you gain new knowledge and see evidence for how your worldviews can help you and your community better prosper, your core assumptions will become even stronger. You have many opportunities to study theology and learn more about what God says in the Bible. This course, however, is designed to strengthen your ownership of your core beliefs, your presuppositions. Core assumptions associated with the bestowal worldview is the mind of Christ. We mentioned earlier in session 2 that all of us have said many times, I'm only human. Well, one interesting way to view core assumptions is by what this statement would mean if the word only were missing. This is what Jesus does. He removes the word only from I am only human. In other words, we are human, but our humanity does not limit us to the mindset and treasures of this physical world. Your view of reality directs your attention beyond the finite material world, as you see that the material world merely points to things eternal. All things come together in Jesus. He discloses all that is true. Do you remember what the writer said to the Jewish Christians in Hebrews? Those priests you had, they existed, but they're not real. Jesus is the real priest. Remember those sacrifices you made to God? Well, they existed, but they were not real. Jesus is the real sacrifice. You can look past those who see the gospel in terms of social justice and reward-punishment systems. And in sharing the core assumptions of Jesus, you understand how experiences in the material world point to the qualities of the reward giver. Feeding the hungry and giving to the poor is not as much about doing good deeds on earth, but rather pointing the world to the mercy God has given to the spiritually hungry and spiritually poor.